What's up, everybody? I'm Chris Dailey, joined here by Dennis Crowley, founder and chairman over at Kingston Stockade. He also owns Foursqaure, an app on the iPhone. So, if you want to go check that out, I have it in the description. And Dennis, thanks for coming on. It's great talking to you. So, so it was in 2015. You said when you wanted, to start a team back in the U.S. Open Cup when you watched the Cosmos and NYCFC play. What were people thinking when you said, "I'm going to start a soccer team"?
Well, my background is in technology, right? And
Yeah.
so people are like, what business do you have trying to start a soccer team? Also, I'm not a very good player. I play pickup, but I'm usually one of the worst on the field, if not the worst. And so, people didn't think it made a lot of sense for me as an individual with my background to try it. But, my thinking was, I wish there was a team up here in Kingston. And because if there's a team, I'd go see the matches, and I would go take my kids to go see the matches, and no one else was making a team. So I said, I will go and make the team. And sure enough, we made the team, works pretty well. And, sometimes we get 1,000 people to show up at the matches. My friends come up, my kids love it. It's great.
Yeah, so it's in the NPSL, the first division, and there's a local team around, where I am. So, I'm always going to NPSL matches, and actually been to the year before.
Yeah.
So, while starting this team, you had a new kid on your hand, you have a whole other business. How were you managing all of this at once?
That's a great question. It's, I've been doing Foursqaure for 10 years. And so we started the team 4 years ago. So it's probably year 7 of Foursqaure, where my job was, was not easier, but it was starting to be less intense. And so I had a little bit of some extra cycles I could spend working on Stockade. Also, we had our first child, who's now 4 years old, right when the season was starting. And so I was on paternity leave. And so I'm like, oh, well, I can do this with all the time that I'll have being on paternity leave, but being totally naive to how much work one has to do as a dad of a newborn. So I really did have my hands full. These days, the way I explain to people is Stockade in the off season is a couple hours work per week. And, during the season, it might be an hour a day. And I have people that help us out up here in the community, but you can do it. It's a lot of work, right? Mm-hmm. No one's getting paid. No one's making any money, but it's awesome and people love it and it's worth it.
And you have a loyal fan base, the supporters and everything. So, when you finally got onto that pitch and, the team finally came together, how were you feeling as you saw that, team on the field?
Oh, that's a great question. So I think the very first game we had, it was one of these, you're just, I've never put on a soccer game before, and even though you make a to-do list of the 100 things you have to do, there's another 100 things that you didn't even think about doing that you have to do. And so I'm just running around like a chicken with my head cut off, trying to get all these things done. So I didn't have time to really, watch the players come out or watch the stands fill up. But then once the game started, I remember I was standing, behind the bench and, just kind of watching taking it in oh my God, look at this. This is awesome. Look at these guys in the field. This team is great. Everything's moving so quickly. The skill level is high. And then, someone, some header, some aggressive play. I can't remember what it was. And then there was this roar of the crowd. And, I remember looking back and all the guys that were sitting on the bench, they looked back. Everyone looking on the field looked back at once, being like, holy cow, there's got to be 800, 900 people here. And it was awesome. It was the collective moment of everyone being like, wow, this worked. And it's awesome, and I'll never forget how amazing that was.
Yeah, and so, that season was a success, and then the second season was even more successful when you win the conference championship.
That's right. Yeah, we won the conference championship. We have a trophy. It's about this big. It's at the local brewery down the street.
Yeah, so, your whole goal was, to make the U.S. Open Cup. After all, that's kind of where the club is founded, at a game there, the Cosmos and New York City FC. So, when you finally qualified for the Open Cup, what were you thinking? Was it kind of a sense of relief, or was it let's get this started?
It was, I'll tell you what, when we won that trophy, right, we knew that when we won the conference championship, we knew that was going to get us far enough along in the NPSL standings that we probably would have qualified for the Open Cup. And I remember after that, just like walking out in the field with my hands on my head, just being like, I can't believe we did this. I can't believe we made this. I can't believe we won a trophy, and we're going to qualify for the U.S. Open Cup. And, but like, it's like, this because you've talked to professional athletes before. I think when you achieve your goal, sometimes you just have to say like, all right, we did that. Now, what is the next goal? What is the next thing we're going to do? And so you have that moment where you like celebrate and appreciate it, but then you have to immediately move on and focus on the next thing. And that's really what we were doing.
Yeah, and like for people that don't really know too, like how big the U.S. Open Cup is, like it's been going for like 100 years now, like plus 100 plus. So I mean, back in the day when like 1930s American soccer was legit, it was like coming third in the World Cup and stuff. I mean, U.S. Open Cup was pretty much the FA Cup, so that's a huge deal.
That's right. Yeah, I think it's the longest running sports competition in all of the United States.
Yeah, and I think it's one of the top 5 in the world. I think number 3. Yeah. It's up there. So at that U.S. Open Cup game against the Long Island Rough Riders, it's a tie game, and then it didn't go your way in extra time. If calls happened that really just didn't go your way. So but what was it finally like to play in that U.S. Open Cup?
It was bittersweet, because it was an away game, right? And so it was in Long Island, and Long Island is like a 5-hour drive from where we are in Kingston. It's inaccessible to the. It was inaccessible to the fans. We ran a fan bus down there. Did we run a fan bus? I think we did. And I was actually kind of disappointed because the stadium wasn't great. The stadium didn't meet a lot of the requirements that the U.S. Open Cup said that they had to meet. And so I was really frustrated where it's like, I have this beautiful stadium that meets all the requirements. Why wouldn't you just give us the home game? We're doing something awesome here for soccer in the Hudson Valley. Give us the home game. We would have brought 4,000 people there. And so it was frustrating. And then, of course, the performance. It is what it is. Like we had one of our guys get injured like in the 11th minute, and then we had another guy get injured in like the 95th minute. And I mean, it's tough. Even when you ask me, like, I'm getting like, not like emotional, but like I get stressed just thinking about it.
Yeah. So,
but at the end of the match, you're thinking like, okay, we did it. We played. How do we get back here? How do we get back to the Open Cup again? How do we get the home draw? How do we win the game at home?
And that's like the mindset you were talking about, when you qualified. It's like, look ahead. But I really agree with you on that whole thing because I feel like if the Red Bulls are playing, a local side, no Red Bull fans are going to go to the game, maybe some in the supporter section, but that's really about it, to be honest with you. If you put it at the local side, it's going to look better. So when that happens, Kingston Stockade's on the rise. You're getting all this media attention. Like, were you noticing kind of a surge in Stockade when all that happens?
Well, I mean, there's two things, right? There's like there's the community support that happens up here in Kingston, and then there's kind of like the national coverage of Stockade, right? And so, we have a small stadium here. It's 1,000, 2,000 people. And we're in a small town of like 20,000 people. And so to get 1,000 people to come out to a game is like a big accomplishment. I don't know if we're ever going to be that team that has 2,500 people or 5,000 people that show up every game. We're just in a really small market. Yeah. That said, like it's amazing that we ship T-shirts all over the world, scarves all over the world, stickers all over the world. People go to our online shop, StockadeFC.com, and they buy stuff and they wear it. I've been in airports around the U.S. where you run into someone wearing a Stockade shirt. I've been to an MLS game in Seattle and someone in the stands is wearing a Stockade shirt. That's awesome. They'll never go to a game. They've never been to a game. They might not be able to find Kingston on a map, but they believe in what we're doing. They like the story. The same reason that caused you to reach out to me is why people go online and buy a T-shirt and just rep it and wear it. And I love that.
And I think that's credit to you, to be fair, for putting Kingston Stockade out there online, into the world really. So things like Forbes Japan, which I saw, and I was like, oh, this is a nice article. Let me read it, and then I go to read it, and I can't. But so how did that interview go? Like, were you interviewed by Forbes Japan?
Yeah, I was in San Francisco for work, And it turns out that the editor of Forbes Japan was also in San Francisco for a conference that I was speaking at the conference. And so I was like, well, I have to give a talk on Foursqaure and all the stuff that we do with the internet and location technology. It's like, well, why don't we just meet up for breakfast? And so, met up with him for breakfast, and we had kind of the same conversation that we're having here. And we did an interview, and they called me a week later, and he's like, "Hey, we want to put you on the cover of the magazine." I was like, "That's okay, that's cool." And so I went and I did a photo shoot with we have a photographer, this guy named Ewan Burns in New York, and he helps us with all the stuff we do at Foursqaure, right? He takes our headshots for work and stuff. And so I did it. I was like, "Hey, Forbes, you should work with Ewan," and they got all hooked up. And I did a photo shoot with Ewan. And then he was like, "Man, I just wore like a black t-shirt." And he's like, "Whatever you're wearing just it's not working. Like, do you have anything else?" I'm like, "No, I actually have this Stockade t-shirt that's in Japanese." He's like, "Yes, of course. Wear the Japanese t-shirt for the Japanese magazine shoot," which was it. I just didn't think about it. But yeah, it was a great idea. And what you were saying about it's such a perfect example of we're a little club. We're a little club with we have dreams and aspirations, but the club represents a much larger story about what's going on in U.S. soccer and about aspiration in the lowest levels of U.S. soccer and about people in the U.S. that want to be entrepreneurs in sports and are looking for opportunities to build something and see it grow and see it succeed. And, I think without realizing it, by writing a lot about what Stockade was doing and why we started it, why it was important, what we wanted to do, we started dealing ourselves into this conversation about like there's not promotion and relegation in the United States. And there may never be promotion and relegations in the United States. And that is one of the reasons, as you said a couple minutes ago, we haven't been a dominant force in soccer on the world stage since the 1930s, you said. And so what happens then, right? So we're one tiny voice, but I think Stockade has done like an interesting kind of accidentally done a good job at representing a lot of the lower level clubs that have ambition and a lot of the fans that want to see the U.S. get better and a lot of the fans that want to see promotion and relegation be one of the mechanisms that's transformed soccer in the United States.
And I mean, you mentioned 1930s and all that, and I think that answer was great. And 2026, when that rolls around, maybe even 2022, there's talks about that, America even hosting sooner. When the World Cup comes, there's going to be a surge of soccer in the States. Like, are you preparing for that as an owner already? Are you thinking about that?
Yeah, I was so excited for this season because this is our fifth year. We're in our fifth year as a club, our fifth season. And, the NPSL changes every year. Teams come and teams go. Like this year, the Cosmos weren't going to be in the league. Yeah. And the Brooklyn Italians weren't going to be in the league. And those are two teams that we've struggled with. And I was like, gosh, we'll have a strong team. The two other strongest teams won't be there. We'll probably win the conference. We'll probably get another trophy. We'll probably qualify for the Open Cup. And I'm going to work so hard to get this home draw. And so I had this whole thing going like, this is going to be an amazing season for us. And then just like that, because of coronavirus, the season's canceled, and it's really unfortunate. I mean, we'll start again next year, and we'll get going again next year. But what is the World Cup 2026?
Yeah, 2026.
I mean, that feels so far away, right?
And it might be 2022 that there's talks, because the whole controversy over in Qatar that U.S. is ready to host, and if it can host in 2022, it might. So.
Oh, I heard those. I thought those rumors were squashed. I'd love to see it.
I would like the sooner the better for me. Just experience that. But
imagine that you get 2 World Cups back to back in the United States.
Yeah, and then that's the 60-team World Cup. Excuse me.
Oh, that's right.
Wait,
that's
is
right.
it? Yeah, 48 teams. So that would be big.
But that's not Qatar. That's
2026. And then
will be the first year.
And then it'll be at MetLife too, the final. So right in the hometown. So Kingston Stockade, you mentioned the 5th year, and then the NPSL is doing a fall league, from what I know. So are you guys going to join that, or any talks about it?
I'd like to. This is the year that we were thinking, okay, well let's start having the conversation to see if we can start putting the pieces together for us, for Kingston, to have a fall league, because it's not just like, oh, let's just play some games in the fall. Like, you have to reserve the stadium, and then you're competing against the other high schools that use it. A lot of our guys are college guys, and the college guys, they're back in college. They can't play for us in the fall. They're playing for their colleges, so you have to get another roster. And then it's like you gotta have staff, right? And our staff is mostly volunteers. And by the time that we do 7 home games, everyone's pretty burnt out. Never mind if we had to do 18 home games. So it's it's a lot. Doing a spring season and a fall season, it's a lot harder than just like, oh, let's play a few more games. It's like a whole different business model. So I do want to do it. I got to figure out a way to do it.
Yeah.
The other part is I got this. We don't live in Kingston. My wife and I and our kids, we live in New York City. And, I work in the city. My wife works in the city. My kids go to school in the city. And I think in order to do soccer year-round, which sounds awesome, doesn't it? We'd have to move up here. And I don't know if we're ready to do that yet.
I mean, all of that, it sounds like strenuous, task. It's a tough task. And, there's the UPSL as well, and now the NISA. So, with you mentioned Cosmos going to the NISA and stuff, are there, or you guys have like any ambitions to ever return to the professional side?
It's yes, right? Like, let's fast forward. Let's say that you and I are talking again 20 years from now, and we're talking about the amazing 20-year run that Stockade has had. And I would imagine, and I hope we do. I hope you turn into some superstar sports journalist, and you and I have this conversation in augmented reality 20 years from now. I think I'd like to think that we have a professional team, and I like to think that we have a first team and a second team and a women's team and a youth academy. We have all these things that we've built over 20 years. So yes, I think about that. But remember, we were just talking about how hard it is to just go from spring to fall. So that's hard.
Yeah.
Even if the players are still amateur or on a tiny salary, but the moment that we have to go and have a professional roster, that means you get the guys that are getting paid year-round. I have to have insurance. I have to have workers' comp. It gets super, super expensive very quickly. So I can run Stockade on a budget of about $100,000 a year. And when you do the math to say, like, well, how much is it going to cost to run a professional team, you really start looking at like $500,000 a year on the low end, or maybe even up to $1 million.
And it's only going to get higher as the years go on. So
but then you go look at the Cosmos. The Cosmos might carry a couple $1 million worth of players alone. Never mind all the other expenses. So it gets really, really expensive really fast. And then remember, we're in a small market, right? And so it might be like the math might be that Stockade needs 4,000 fans a game in order to justify having a paid professional roster. And I just don't know if we can get 4,000 fans a game. Not because the games aren't fun, just because like there's not that many people up here.
And
maybe we'll see.
I mean, and like I'm thinking, because you're telling me this, I'm trying to think like the major like NPSL teams. I include Stockade in my list, and then I had the Roots until the Oakland and Detroit City. So I mean, all these teams are in major markets, and you're making valid points here. So what are your really
Detroit, Chattanooga, like the teams that Oakland, for example, the teams that do it, they're
in major cities with NBA
they're in
teams.
Markets with 500,000 people. There's 20,000 people.
I mean, that's pretty impressive though for Stockade. I mean, they're getting
Thank you for acknowledging that.
Yeah. They're getting a pretty big chunk of the percentage of the city inside that stadium. So that's actually pretty impressive when you think of it. When you compare it to other teams, I mean that's probably a lot better than most teams.
Yeah, one of the coolest things about being up here and this, having an interesting team in a small market is that everyone is wearing Stockade stuff, right?
Yeah.
This might be the only day this month that I'm not wearing a Stockade T-shirt because all my T-shirts are all Stockade stuff. But you go in town and you park your car to go get a coffee, and someone's wearing a hat or someone's wearing a T-shirt or someone has a sticker on their car. Like you see it everywhere. It's really cool.
Yeah, and so. You mentioned this. I was reading one of your blogs, and it was like all the leftover merchandise for a season, all stuffed into a room in your house somewhere. So, I mean, like handling a team, handling all these businesses. Like, I'm sure a lot of people ask, like, how do you do it? But like mentally, is it tough on you? Like, how do you stay like mentally tough throughout like bad times, good times, and all that?
That's a great question. I don't know. I think you can, as an individual, you can be like one of the like glass half full or glass half empty people. And you can also choose to like dwell on things that didn't work, or you can just say like, it didn't work, let's move on, right? Like you mentioned, you started a team and you tried to start a team, it didn't work. And so you can either sit around and be like, oh man, I wish that worked. Or you can say like, well, why didn't it work? Why don't we just try it again next year, and we'll try it again the year after that, and we'll just keep doing it.
And just PS real quick though, the team didn't work. It's just on pause, it's just on hold until
right?
just until I get a little older.
It's just on pause until it works. I'll tell you the other thing, right? Because I do have a lot of stuff going on because I have my job at Foursqaure, and I run the Stockade team, and then I'm involved in this other thing called Street FC. Which is it's like an app that just makes pickup soccer games.
Yeah.
And I work on that with Kyle Martino from the
I've seen him on TV.
Yeah, so Kyle and I have been working on that for a while. But like this is a dumb little hack, but I have these notebooks and I carry these notebooks everywhere I go. And anytime I have an idea for something that I have to do or something that would be good, I just write it down in the book. And then I never retire the book. I never get rid of a book until everything gets done. Or delegated to someone else, or thrown away because it was a crappy idea. But this keeps me super organized, and I can get a lot done just by staying organized and focused.
Yeah, I mean that's actually a great idea, to be honest with you, because I'm sure like all the times I have crazy thoughts. If I had it down, maybe all the songs that I thought of in my head, maybe I'll be some pop star by now. But so
the whole other trajectory you could take.
Yeah. So I mean, with Kingston Stockade, and we're just gonna wrap up here. Like, what are your future goals with Stockade? Like, what do you want to accomplish with this team?
These are great questions.
Thank
you. I set that goal initially of we started the club like I want to qualify for the U.S. Open Cup, and I want to get the club to be financially break even, and I want to show people that you can run. If you start a sports team in your small town, it's not just about lighting money on fire. Like you can get it to be sustainable, because I think if you get it to be sustainable, then you encourage other people to do it. Mm-hmm. My goal now, since we did get to break even or close enough, and we did qualify for the Open Cup, is get back in the Open Cup, get the home draw. Right? I don't want to go on the road and play on Long Island again. I want people to come up to the Hudson Valley and see us play up here. And the next thing I want to do is I want to grow what we're doing. Right? The number one piece of feedback that I get from our fans, it's not when are you going to get back to the Open Cup. It's when are you going to have a women's team. And I'm like, let's do it. Let's get a women's team. Let's find a coach. Let's recruit some players. Let's join a league. Let's get a schedule. Let's do it. It was one of the things I was excited about exploring this year. I think the project's on hold now because of COVID and everything else. But like you said with your own team, it's not canceled, it's on pause, right? So we'll think about it next year, we'll think about it the year after that. Would love to have a youth academy, right? To have a youth academy, I need to have a field for people to play on because the fields are the biggest expense. So maybe we buy some land and maybe we make a field. Maybe we put some lights up, right? Maybe we lease the field back to people. Maybe that turns into a stadium someday. Who knows, right? But there's 1,000 things we could do, and I think it starts with we got to get back on the field. We got to qualify for the Open Cup. We got to get the home draw, and we got to start a women's team.
Yeah. So I mean, that was really my last question for you, Dennis. I mean, I thank you for your time, and I know the WPSL, the Women's Premier Soccer League, is the equivalent to the NPSL, but in the women's side. So it's a great league. And so, I mean, thank you. I really respect everything you're doing, and I'm just wishing you, to stay healthy and everything throughout this time.
You too. Thanks so much. I'll say the last thing. If anyone's interested in learning more about Stockade FC, you can go to stockadefc.com or follow us at Stockade FC on Instagram and Twitter and all the other things. So.
Well, thanks, Dennis. So I'm just going to